Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, go ahead. I wanted to hear your views on whether we should have specific initiatives for women and not lump it all up with the vulnerables, like the youth versus the disability and all that.
I think it depends on the issue, Trevor. If you're looking at political inclusion, financial inclusion, education, healthcare, different issues affect women differently. But what I can tell you is that, the consideration that, women or the factors that affect the proper enjoyment of all amenities, welfare amenities by women need to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Allow me to give you the example of healthcare policies in this country. Child mortality and maternal mortality ought to be addressed as a child mortality and maternal mortality issue, and need to be given the due consideration that they require. Education, the platform for girls' education in the Commonwealth, led by Ambassador Amina Mohammed, is actually primarily trying to put back 30 million girls in Commonwealth countries who are actually out of school. And that number is highest in girls. So the issue of education, how does continuation and continuity of education, how is it affected by the specific factors that affect women and girls just because of the agenda? As Aya said, menstruation and period hygiene is a huge, has a huge effect on continuation of education by girls, as does a child molestation and teenage pregnancies, because actually teen pregnancies in most cases are cases of abuse. If you think about political inclusion, you have violence, you have utter exclusion and propaganda against women. So when you lump up women issues, what is women issues? I don't think that there is a category of welfare aspects that is called women issues, but we have to recognize that women actually interact with the various welfare issues in very different ways, and very specific attention has to be paid to the factors that actually negate full inclusion and full enjoyment of those welfare attributes. And as I said, there's an intersectionality component. Take, for instance, climate change. I'm sure you know, Trevor, that a majority of small-scale farmers in Africa who actually drive the African food agenda are women. And their economic situation is actually grossly affected by a changing climate. And so we must, isolate that issue and look at it as a climate issue, but a climate issue that affects the majority of small-scale farmers feeding the continent who happen to be women. Do you see where I'm going with this? That when we become extremely simplistic, when we merely say that, oh, we're tired of this women empowerment issue. But actually, why don't you isolate the various issues of intersectionality that affect women in the various spheres where they're actually included, and then deal with those issues in a very targeted, in a very empowering, in a very progressive way, without having to think of it as tokenism or as female empowerment and girl child empowerment as being something that is really prevalent and that something that we have to press the brakes on. Yeah. It's actually a cause of human survival. Okay. It is pegged on human survival, because if we do not take care of the small-scale farmers who are feeding the continent because of the effect of climate change, we are looking at starvation across the continent. If we do not take care of education, we are looking at losing about $40 billion per year from the economy, global economy. So we have to look at it in a very, very targeted way and not be lazy about it.
Okay.